Hey everyone, I'm Aidan Walls, and today we're going to do a review of the RG350M. The RG350M is an older device running the JZ4770 processor. So this is considerably slower than the new models like the RG351MP, the 351M, the PowerKitty RGB10 Max 2. All those are faster, but I'm hoping that through this review I'll show you that this is still worth buying in 2022. Alright, so I'm going to put the specs of the device on the screen now. The thing to pay attention with this is the difference of features versus the price compared to the newer products. So I still think this device has a place in the world. The RG351MP and the RG351M, the RG351MP is a bit more expensive. The RG351M is a bit cheaper, around the same price as the PowerKitty RGB10 Max 2. And this device is $10 cheaper than that. It goes for about $110 on Banggood. Now, that's not a lot of money, but it is a certain amount of money. And if you can watch this review and say, okay, those are actually the features I want in a device, then why not save the $10 and get the device that is for you? This device, compared to the devices I just mentioned, they're on the screen now, is a better quality device than the PowerKitty. So it's, I bought this because it's going to last me pretty much forever. And it's a little bit better than the devices that replaced it, the 351 series, because it has HDMI out that actually works, and it has a better resolution screen than the 351M. The 351MP actually got the 480 by 640 screen. So it has a really nice screen. You'll see in my gameplay footage the games look lovely, and so versus those devices, there still are a lot of benefits to getting this lower powered older device, and we're going to get into that now. Cool. So the RG350M, the boxing is pretty unassuming. When you take it out, you're immediately struck by the fact that it's quite a heavy device for such a sort of affordable device. Inside you've got USB-C cable, user manual. I don't think I've ever actually read this. Anyway, it guides you through some of the things, but I will take you through that now. There's a lot to do with setting up your ROMs and your SD cards and all that kind of thing, but I'm going to show you custom firmware and what you need to use to make this thing run optimally. So that's the box, and here is the device. It really is a nice looking device. I think for $110 you really are getting your money's worth. So we've got 2 SD card slots. That's for your operating system, that's for your ROMs. A reset button, using custom firmware, it's not perfect, so you often have to reset the device. Dual speakers, I'm not sure if it's stereo. It doesn't really matter with 16-bit audio whether it's stereo or not, but you have 2 speakers boosting out the bottom there. 2 really nice analog sticks. The D-pad is, it's probably one of the best around. I think they've even improved it on the RK552, but it really is a nice little D-pad. It's a little bit clicky, but soft, which is what you want. These buttons I do find are sticking out a little bit too much. I don't know if you can see that here. But when I am playing and maybe doing something where I need to shoot quickly, sometimes it'll catch on the side of the chassis of the device. So that is sometimes a bit of an issue, but overall really nice feeling buttons. And like I say, these analog sticks are just like a dream to work with. They're also L1 and L3 push buttons, but as you'll discover, this device isn't really powerful enough to run games that use L1 and L3, so I never really push these. There's one game that I was playing recently where I actually, on Doom, on the standalone game of Doom, I used this to circle in game, to pivot, and then this was to strafe left to right. You've got L1 and L2 buttons at the top here. Depending on the games you're playing on Game Boy, these have different purposes to change the screen settings and all sorts of things. So these come in really handy, but they are just a single click digital button, which I find just for the quality of device, a real downer. But, they work and they do the job. So, when you press them, they click and you know what's happening. But the other thing is, it rattles like considerably. Even when I first got this, I unscrewed this and had a look to see if there was something wrong. All the reviewers were in love with this device, and I think it just slipped their minds to remind you that is quite a cheap feeling thing about the device. So yeah, that is one downside of it. Your plugs, I've never used the OTG so far. I know with some of the newer firmware you can connect a Wi-Fi dongle, but with these older Linux devices, I'm not 100% sure they are even set up to utilize the Wi-Fi. So for instance, I can't update album art on OpenDingix or the Atom image that I'm going to tell you about just now. So I'm not sure what you can do with this. I know you can maybe plug in an external controller. So maybe if my kids are playing it, they can play two-player games, but I've never tried that out. The HDMI, so this is one of the things I'm going to speak about a lot in this review, is that this HDMI output is quite a big deal because none of the successors, the newer versions of this device, have HDMI outs. So that's quite a big deal. If you are into using this as a console on your TV or whatever, then this is the device for you. Analog audio out, there's no Bluetooth, so that might be a downer for some people. And then your charging USB-C port. On the back is just the legal stuff, Anbernic, and these rubber grips are actually really nice. They are very soft and squishy, so I think they're going to sort of wear out over time. But in terms of using them as grips while you play, it really, like there, when I hold it like that, my fingers are on that, and it helps not to drop the device. Because with it being an aluminium shell, which is really nice, the reason I got this was because I wanted something sturdy and that was going to last me forever, and I didn't want to have to invest in something else later on. Aluminium shell is nice, but it is heavy and slippery. So having grips at the back is really, really nice. And then the other aspect of the hardware on this device is the fact that it has a 640 by 480 screen, I think it is. One of the main reasons I got this over and above the 351M is the fact that it had a higher resolution screen. Now, a lot of people played that down online when I asked questions about whether I should get this device. But when I received it, and then I went back and looked at people with the 351M, it's really nice to have a higher resolution screen. And this is not a 16 by 9 ratio. This is a 3 by 2, I think it is, which is more geared towards retro gaming. I feel like with a Sega Mega Drive and your Nintendo, the aspect ratio is more geared towards this. Even your Game Boy, which is almost square, it fits nicely into the screen, and the higher resolution just makes it a nice experience to use. So I really like that about this device. So what does it play? It plays everything up to PS1. PS1 is hit and miss. So that's where you're hitting the limits of this device. Anything above PS1, Dreamcast, N64, all those generation of games do not play on this device. If that's what you're looking for, then look at something else. The devices I mentioned, the 351M, MP, that Power Kitty device, all of those can play that, but even they have their limits. So if that is something that you're looking for, a higher end device, then you need to start looking at the Odin, the Steam Deck, those sorts of devices. Okay, so when you ship the device, it comes with this system called OpenDingX. It is a Linux-based system. It's a very reliable system. It plays all the games that you want it to play. It's got lovely emulators, but in my opinion, it's just super ugly and not user-friendly. And so when I got it, I immediately started to try and build something that was more user-friendly. And so I built this platform, the OpenDingX, plus RetroArch, which plays a lot of the games that this platform is able to play. And then on top of that, I added a front end called Simple Menu to just make it look cool and easier to use. And so while I was building that, a guy by the name of Eduardo Filo built Atom Image. Atom Image basically takes what I was busy building and takes it to the next level because he is a coder and he knows exactly what he's doing. And so that takes this device to the next level. So why would you carry on using OpenDingX, and why do I still have it? The reason is because the HDMI on this OpenDingX platform does work better than the Atom Image. The HDMI with my Atom Image only works on some screens for whatever reason. Maybe it uses a different protocol or whatever. So if I want to play on an HDMI, like one of my TVs, my kids want to play or whatever, then I just pop the OpenDingX operating system into this SD card slot and I run it from here. So yeah, so it's good to just be familiar with how this works so that if you do ever want to use HDMI, you can use it. And so I do recommend that you keep this SD card in a safe place, especially if something happens with one of the SD cards, you've got a backup. So this is the platform that Eduardo Filo has built. It's called the Atom Image. It is a great system. I'll put the other devices that it works on. It takes your old OpenDingX system and makes it look just really nice and user-friendly. This is the Betamax theme, which I think just was the icing on the cake for this system. There's my arcade games. I don't have album art for a lot of these, but it just looks really nice. It's easy to navigate. There's my consoles, there's my handhelds, computer games, apps and games. Let's go into handheld. There's Gameboy, Gameboy Watch, Game & Watch, Gameboy, all the games that I want and enjoy. And then if you press Y, it goes to your favorites. And these are all my favorites in one place. So if I like a game, what I do is, let's get out of here. If I like a game, let's say I've decided I like this dexterity game, I just press X and it likes it for me. Okay, and so yeah, it is a really nice platform, and basically the long and the short of it is, if you want to make your RG350M the ultimate device and easy to use and fun to use, and if you've bought it for somebody and you're sort of nerdy like me and you want to set it up for them, just put the Atom Image on. It's the way to go. So there, Eduardo Filo, thank you. You've made it very easy for everyone. So yeah, moving on, gameplay. So I'm going to go through a couple of my favorite games, but before I do that, I just want to show you one of the things that this platform does struggle with, that this console does struggle with, is arcade games. It's a hit and miss with arcade games. But here, what's interesting is this 1942 game, which you'll recognize. Select. If you're old like me, you'll recognize this game from old consoles. But it works really well. You use your analog stick. So here's where the analog stick on the right-hand side comes into play. There we go. It works really well. So that's quite a cool thing about the system. You can do your vertical games, but it doesn't, not all arcade games work. Let's just see. I've managed to get this one working. Yes, I've managed to get this one working. But I don't have a lot, because every time I load one on, it doesn't work. So I haven't bothered with album art and all that sort of thing. One of the really cool things about this Atom Image is Simple Menu allows you to change the emulator. So you just go, you press select, and you can choose an emulator. So I very often, if it's not working, I just change the emulator and then I get it working. So that's quite cool, and it stays like that. That game will now play on that emulator every time I go in. In terms of gameplay, like I said, we've got obviously Game Boy. There are no hassles with Game Boy games. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but as you can see, Game Boy games work perfectly. And obviously NES games, Nintendo games work really well. One of my old favorites. And as you can see, this game is currently stretched to the full-size screen, but I don't mind with the NES games because of the high resolution screen. It stretches over and it doesn't look like it's lost any quality, even though probably technically it has. So you can see there's no screen tearing or anything weird. It just looks really nice. Sometimes you'll get a game that doesn't read out very well. Like you can see there's a bit of flickering there. But overall, it's pretty good. Here's Contra, and actually looking at it now and also looking up, this is the first time I played it with it stretched over the whole screen. And it's actually really nice. The colors on the screen are so great, and there's just no issues with lag or anything on NES. This is just the ultimate Nintendo playing console. And then Super Nintendo, again, just no issues. Super Nintendo really was a big deal for the system. Earthworm Jim is a graphically pretty intensive game, and I've never had an issue with Earthworm Jim. Great game actually to play on this. It looks good on the screen, as you can see, stretched out, it's looking really nice. As you can see, Streets of Rage works without an issue. Also really cool game on the Sega Mega Drive and works no problems. Also stretched out fully on the screen. It's a really lovely Sega Mega Drive system. Also a game I really enjoy on the Sega Mega Drive that looks cool on the screen, Tasmanian Devil. I think it's mostly just memories because it's not a particularly good game, but I enjoy it. It's the only thing with PS1 games, they take forever to load. But again, looks great on this little screen. I actually haven't played this game with the audio on. I see my analog stick isn't set up. But it works pretty well. I mean, this is a pretty graphically intensive game, and this is dealing with it quite well. So it depends on again, with the PS1, what you need to do is just select the right emulator. So if it's the wrong emulator, just go into Simple Menu and select your emulator. But it's working pretty well. Spyro, which is a 3D game, which I quite enjoy this game, it's handling it fine. So a lot of these PS1 games work well. And then another cool game on PS1 that I enjoy and it works is Wipeout. So again, this is a pretty graphically intensive game, and this little RG350M is working quite well. So as you can see, like for me, gameplay on these devices, you're not looking to play the latest like God of War and stuff. I mean, that's just expecting more of what these devices are designed for, and that's for playing Game Boy, Game Boy Advance and all that kind of thing, which we'll look at now. And then these PS1s to me are just a bonus. And so if you end up buying a 351P or whatever, you're just going to get a bit of extra gameplay, which is really nice. But to me, to be able to play these older games is kind of what these are all about. Anyway, this is a really cool game, and it's actually giving me the haptic feedback, the rumble. And then obviously there's the handheld devices. I've already showed a couple of Game Boy games. There's Game Boy Advanced, which I play a lot of. Also these games, it's quick to get started, whereas PS1, and as soon as you get into fancier games, they take long to load and all that kind of thing. This is quickly, sitting in the car waiting for something and you can play a quick game. Some old school Mario Kart. Oops. And here's a game I really enjoy. I know it's like a kiddies game, but this is a fun game. And these are the sort of things that I feel like these devices are designed for, is just these fun little games, you know. And that's Game Boy Advance. I actually haven't had many issues, to be honest. When I do have an issue, all I do is I press select, I choose a different emulator, and I carry on. So I've never really had an issue with Game Boy Advance, and then Game Boy obviously, and Game Boy Color, never had an issue with those. So that's the gameplay. Okay, let's quickly talk about the missing features on this device. The features that it's missing is Wi-Fi. The other devices that I mentioned, the RGB10 Max, the Max 2, the RG351M and the RG351MP all have Wi-Fi, or they come with a Wi-Fi dongle. This device, the thing is, you probably can plug in a Wi-Fi dongle, but the firmwares that are created for this don't really make use of the Wi-Fi, so you'd have to come up with a clever way to update your album art and all that sort of thing. Rather just, there's another YouTuber called Retro Game Call. Go follow his guide on how to sort out your album art. So for instance, when you saw me going through this, all this album art I had to unfortunately set up. So once you've decided on all the games that you want on your device, you go to Retro Game Call. He'll guide you through the whole thing and show you how to set up your album art. But unfortunately, there's no Wi-Fi to update that. There's no Bluetooth, so that's something that I really miss, because I like using my Bluetooth headphones. So you have to go old school and use analog headphones with this. But generally, I'm not really playing this around anyone, so I just turn up the volume when I'm using it, and then turn it off when there are people around me. And then obviously the fact that it is not as high powered as those devices I mentioned. But that will bring us into the conclusion where I speak about who this is for. Okay, so I'm going to give you my conclusion, and then I'm going to recommend other devices. If I did not convince you this is the device to buy right now, I'm going to give you some recommendations. So, conclusion, who is this device for? Firstly, this is a very, very high quality device that plays almost all the games you'd want. So, sort of philosophically speaking about these retro gaming handhelds, for me, as sort of an older user of these devices, I'm sure, I mean, my daughter's played this and she's already complaining that it doesn't play games that she's seen on her friend's Nintendo Switch. But for me, as an older person, and I think, you know, this sort of thing is for a sort of a weird market where it's people over 30 who are looking to rekindle nostalgia of the past. And for me, this device plays everything that reminds me of my childhood. I stopped playing games at about PS1. And so for me, everything from Nintendo, Game Boy, I love playing those monochrome Game Boy games, and PS1 games, just a little bit of PS1 games. For me, this is everything I want in a handheld device. And so if you don't mind the lack of power, and for you, you're saying to me, that's exactly how I feel. I don't really want to play anything over PS1. Then this is the device for you. And then the added bonuses is, if you are looking for a device that has HDMI out, this is also a great device to have. As I mentioned, the Open Dingix, the original version that comes with the device, does the HDMI out really well. And the other huge bonus about this device is that it has a higher resolution screen than the 351 series. So the 351MP, which is the one that just came out, they did upgrade the screen. But all the ones in between have that lower resolution screen. And I know a lot of people say, well, it's retro gaming, you don't need a high-res screen. But it really is nice to play these old games on new modern tech. So for me, that is the reason I enjoyed this. I like the high-res screen, and I like the fact that it gives me HDMI out to my TV so that my kids can play or whatever. Then, if you're saying to me, listen, I do want a more powerful device, I want Bluetooth, I want Wi-Fi, I want all of the things, then I would say go for the Retroid Pocket 2. The Retroid Pocket 2 is not as nicely built as this, but the Retroid Pocket 2 has really nice trigger buttons, which I complained about in the review. I really don't like these buttons. They're there and they work, but they're not great. And also the Retroid Pocket 2 runs Android and is very powerful. It can play Dreamcast, N64. It's Bluetooth compatible. You can connect Bluetooth controllers to it, Bluetooth headphones. You can pretty much use it as a home console. It's got HDMI out into your TV. So for me, the real big competitor to this is the Retroid Pocket 2. The screen isn't as good on the Retroid Pocket 2 Plus, but you know, pros and cons. I think that is the closest competitor to this in terms of having a fully comprehensive solution, except it's just not as well built. So that's that one. And then the other one that really competes with this, that is only $20 more, is the RG350MP. No HDMI outputs, but it does come with a Wi-Fi dongle, so you do have to plug the dongle in to get that to work, but you get all of those features, pretty much identical device. So if you don't mind the lack of HDMI output, the 351MP is for you. Thanks so much for watching my video. I appreciate you sticking around for this long review. I made it long because I really wanted to get all the info out to give this 350M a fighting chance in the market, because I do still feel like this is one of the nicest devices on the market, especially with the Atom image that came out. It really just makes it a lovely device to use on a daily basis. It's rugged, it's got the really nice controls, and it plays everything that a 40-year-old nerd like me would want to play. So if you enjoyed this, please give us a like, a subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.